This video is going to go over the meningeal layers covering the brain and their subfeatures. So we're going to start out with the outermost layer of the meninges. It's called the dura mater, and it's going to have a layer that follows the inside of the skull, and it's going to have a layer that follows the general shape of the brain. So like when we go down into the longitudinal fissure, which we learned in a previous video, the dura mater is going to have a dural fold that also goes down into the longitudinal fissure. Now, dura mater means tough mother, and it's a very protective covering. Here's another model that shows this piece of the dura mater. So it has several folds that help to anchor it to the skull and provide some other structural stability. So we have two folds that are vertical. This fold, that again is lying inside the longitudinal fissure, is called the falx cerebri. Now, what's happening in the falx cerebri is that one layer of the dura is sticking to the wall of the ceiling of the skull, the other layer is going down, and so we end up with this gap between them that is called the dural venous sinus. And this upper one, you can see the blue line following the top, also represented here, is called the superior sagittal sinus. And we're going to reabsorb cerebrospinal fluid into the venous blood circulation through this dural sinus. Okay, there are two more folds of the dura. One of them is coming up from the bottom of the skull. It is also a vertical line. Notice the two vertical folds have the word falx in the front of their name. So this one was the falx cerebri, because it's for the cerebrum. This one from the bottom, because it divides the cerebellum, is going to be called the falx cerebelli. So falx cerebri, let me show you that one. Falx cerebelli. So if on this model you only have the falx cerebri, and the front of it's going to be anchored to the crista galli of the ethmoid bone. Okay, so we also have this little area here. This is a dural fold that goes horizontally. So since it goes horizontally, it would not be called a falx, and I like to say it forms a tiny little tent. See, kind of looks like a little pump tent. Little pup tent over top of the cerebellum. So we're going to call this piece the Tentorium Cerebelli. So again, for the dura mater, we have three dural folds. We have the falx cerebri, which contains the superior sagittal sinus. We have the Tentorium Cerebelli, and we have the falx cerebelli. That's the dura. So you put this back and go to this model. On this model, we can only see the falx cerebri and, of course, the superior sagittal sinus. Okay. Now, these two sides on this model represent the next two meningeal layers. The next layer down is called the arachnoid mater, which means spider mother. And if you look at these two, you can tell this one, it looks like it's covered with spider webs. Also notice that we use the area underneath the arachnoid, the subarachnoid space, to hold the blood vessels onto the surface of the brain. Over here, no blood vessels. Over here, there are blood vessels. You'll also note these little white dots on the top edge. Now, this is right where we would meet the arachnoid mater to the dura, and these are going to be called arachnoid granulations. They're going to be areas where we pass the cerebrospinal fluid that we have already used through the arachnoid, through the dura mater, and into that superior sagittal sinus so that we can return the fluid to the bloodstream. So those are those arachnoid granulations. On this side of the model, we see nothing. That's because this side of the model represents the pia mater. That means clinging or loving mother, and it will cling to the surface of the cortex of the cerebrum and cannot be separated. So there's not a visual membrane or anything that we can see or remove for the pia mater. So again, dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater.